Good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And Patty Cake says, Grand Rising founder, Grand Rising to you too. Hope you're having a great Friday, or some people like to say Friday. I think Dr. C likes to say that. Friday. Yes. So I'm very grateful for the weekend, because Friday. But at the same time, we've got a lot going on outside, with the government shutdown, with individuals, they are not going to receive their SNAP benefits tomorrow. And it's wild, because we've had a lot of, I'm going to show a video, breaks down their perspective of the government shutdown. And we're going to get into some more news about how people are going to be affected coming into the weekend and just going into November. But, this is the first time in my lifetime that I've seen it get this bad. And the question is, do they want it this bad on purpose? Right? That's where I'm at. I'm like, because you could have avoided all of this. You could have. But the fact of the matter is, did you want to? There's a big difference in that, right? Because words matter. So we'll get into our first video and then get into some more of this news and Minnesota Fats. Thank you so much for joining this morning and reposting the stream.
Full SNAP benefits, and people need to understand when it comes to them trying to leverage this food crisis to get the subsidies for Obamacare taken care of. I want everyone to understand, especially Democrats and especially young Democrats who don't recall, when this stuff passed, that they always lied to you. They've always been dishonest about Obamacare. And you don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to play for you a clip of the Obamacare architect explaining how dishonesty and not being transparent is how they were able to even get the thing signed.
It's just, you can't do it politically. You just literally cannot do it. Okay? Transparent financing, unless I have transparent financing, also transparent spending. I mean, this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO dies, okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like the people, lack of transparency is a huge political advantage, and basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass.
Okay, you guys recall, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. Obama went around the country campaigning for the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and it wasn't true. It wasn't true. Now, Republicans tried to warn everybody, like, hey, this is not true. And the media and folks covered for him. But after the fact, people found out once they started losing their doctors and losing their plans. They're like, okay, well, we're going to reward him the lie of the year. They didn't want to be upfront about the mandate. The Supreme Court ended up ruling that it was a tax. But they wanted people to basically pay for being alive. Fine you for being alive and not having health care insurance. It's not like you have to pay fees or whatever if you get a driver's license and you drive, on the road or whatever. It's you being alive and not affording insurance because they wanted everyone to be in the pool. And it's arranged like a pyramid scheme because young, healthy people are paying into the system for the sick people. And of course, these companies were forced to include more people in their plans. And that makes the prices go up, obviously. So everybody doesn't want their prices to skyrocket. So they started doing these subsidies. And now these subsidies have run out, which, by the way, the Democrats are the ones who extended it and set them to expire at this time. So now they're in a pickle because a lot of people's insurance is going to skyrocket. Which, by the way, Obamacare has never been affordable. One of the reasons why Donald Trump won in 2016, maybe a lot of people on this app don't remember this, the prices went up like right before that 2016 election. That helped him. But I recall the narrative, at least from the right, was that Obamacare is meant to fail. It's meant to fail. Because once it fails, people are going to want to have just universal health care and get rid of like the private market. That was the conspiracy from the right. Nowadays you have people like AOC and Bernie Sanders are just like, forget about that private healthcare market. We should just, have socialized health medicine or whatever. And they're a lot more transparent now than they used to be. But that was a theory from the right that it's supposed to fail. And here we are, holding up people's SNAP benefits if they don't do the subsidies for these companies. No, they should negotiate and figure all this stuff out, but they need to open up the government. They need to open up the government. It's wild to me that Bernie Sanders went on The View and someone said, hey, you guys shouldn't be paid until this is fixed. He's like, well, some people have families and they can't afford it. They're like, what about everybody else who got laid off or isn't getting paid and still doing their job? They can't afford to not be paid, but you're going to be like, oh no, these Congress people, these senators, they need to be paid, but y'all ain't even doing your job. Not well. They need to be docking y'all pay if y'all don't figure out the budget right. So anyway, they lied to people about Obamacare, and they're lying to people now about who's responsible for the shutdown. Oh my gosh, the Republicans, they in charge in all the branches of government. Yeah, but they don't have 60 votes in the Senate. And they know that. They know that. They know that they don't have enough votes, and they need some Democrats to cross over, and the Democrats keep voting no. They keep voting no on clean CRs that many of them have supported before. And why are they doing that? Because they have leverage. They're leveraging people's paychecks. They're leveraging people's ability to feed their kids. Elderly people who don't have any other options. They're leveraging all of this. And they're doing it because they think that they can control you. And many of you have been controlled. Are you going to let them get away with it?
Yeah. I like her take. And Dr. C, greetings. She says, greetings, founder, greetings to you too, and happy Friday. Yeah, she's not wrong. They are using us as a lever or a measure, I should say, of control. Now I'm going to go into another video because I thought about it. I was like, let me go into this next video because she said something about Bernie Sanders and how, his attitude was like, well, congressmen and women have to get paid because they have to take care of their families. Y'all ain't working right now. Y'all, because in one breath you'll say, oh my gosh, we can't get anything done because, it's with the Senate. And in the other breath, you're saying, but we're trying to work so hard for you. I'm like, stop it. You're all horrible. You should all be in prison right now. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm like, you know what? I would be real good if they just send all y'all to prison. Every single one of you. So we can move on with our lives. Because obviously you don't care about us. You do not care about the American people. You are not doing your job. People want to conflate the executive branch with the legislative branch. But then at the same time, call Donald Trump a dictator. But then, you know what I mean? Like, he's not a dictator. He does not have any rule over the legislature. That's why we have 3 branches of government: legislature, executive, judicial. He cannot control what Congress does. Congress is actually supposed to work for the people, so we don't have a dictator. But see, these parties have been utilizing the presidency as their way to have authoritarianism. The Democrats are really good at it. I'm just saying. Republicans are catching up, but the Democrats are really good at it. They're really good at utilizing their majority in a way to authoritatively demonize the American public. And they're doing it again with this food stamp situation. They want to say that Trump is a dictator. He doesn't get to dictate legislation. You do, Congress. This is all on Congress. Every single bit of it. This lies at your feet. Republicans and Democrats, they're both horrible. I don't know if anybody follows me on X, but I've been trying to call all of them out every single chance that I get. Warnock, he voted no. He did. He voted no on a bill to, it was, I want to say of the 12 or 13 bills that they had to, pass the CR. He voted no. He's from my state. Yeah, he's a senator from my state. Seats up in 2028. He did that. And Spud McKenzie said bullseye. Thank you. Spot on, right? But let me play this. I'm not going to play the whole entire video from Alex Jones, but this is pretty much a compilation of different Democrats and what they've said on air in regards to the shutdown. So right now we're at day 30. So this probably started happening around the second week in October till about now.
It's all the welfare checks, the digital debit cards they have. It's all cut off Saturday. And the left, from the top to the bottom, is pledging to burn the country down. So we were looking, are they going to have a false flag? Are they going to mow down illegal aliens? They keep saying Trump's going to kill everybody. That hadn't happened yet. So now they're like, no, we're just going to burn the country down, and that will kill the economy. And you're like, but the Democrats will get the blame. They did it. Well, they think their constituents are so illiterate politically that they'll never figure it out, which I think is true. I've had a lot of people that are actually have college degrees that I know personally say, who's really behind the shutdown? And I just look at them and I'm like, I've been covering it for months as it built up to this. And once it started 27 days ago, it's the Democrats. You have to have more votes in the Senate for a spending bill. They're holding it up. They brag they're doing it. They're doing it saying they want to create the pain.
Each day, our case to fix health care and end the shutdown gets better and better, stronger and stronger.
I know Democrats are ready to go. I know they're ready to come back and do this. They're ready to come back and protect things that had passed the legislature. They are not willing to come back and let an authoritarian president do whatever he wants.
That's why shutting the government is really what the Democratic Party wants to do. And I follow country, then party. And it's the wrong thing for the country in a period of chaos. I refuse to vote to shut our government down.
And the only reason the Senate can't do it is purely because of Democrats. And you had one of your colleagues in the Senate say this is the only leverage we have. People are going to get hurt. This is the only leverage we have to get what we want on health care. It's a bad look.
I mean, shutdowns are terrible. And of course, there will be, families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility very seriously. But it is one of the few leverage times we have.
Now, I'm going to, pause it right there. Now, you got to remember, and somebody said this to me a long time ago. It was a preacher that I heard. And he says, whenever somebody uses the word but, they're saying, but the underlying truth. That will make you think about so many things differently. Whenever somebody uses the word but, everything they say after that is what they mean. Everything they said before that was the setup. But the underlying truth. The underlying truth is whatever is said after that. That's what we always have to remember, especially with these congressmen and women.
Republicans shut down the government next time Democrats are in charge to extract whatever it is that they happen to want. Are you saying that's okay? Are you saying that's okay if they do that?
I mean, the Republicans have done this quite a while, yes. Yeah, Republicans have done this a lot.
What did you say about it when they did it?
I don't know, and I don't care.
I mean, this is a very dramatic call from that union of federal employees representing hundreds of thousands with a statement today saying, among other things, that it's time for our leaders to start focusing on how to solve problems for the American people rather than on who is going to get the blame for a shutdown that Americans dislike. because when the folks who serve this country are standing in line for food banks after missing a second paycheck because of this shutdown, they aren't looking for partisan spin. They're looking for wages that they earned.
I mean, shutdowns are terrible. And of course, there will be, families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility very seriously. But it is one of the few leveraged times we have.
They have had months to negotiate. And you reopen the government, and we lose our leverage, and they say, well, we want this, we want that. No, there has to be an agreement right now. That's what this whole shutdown is about.
But here's the very simple and important fact that no one should forget. We have no ability. Republicans do not have the ability to do this on our own. It's a simple math problem. We need Democrats to help. You need 60 votes in the Senate. We only have 53 Republicans. The Democrats are the ones voting repeatedly to shut down the government.
Are you surprised that vote after vote, it's just been 3 Democrats time and again who voted for this bill? Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it's Groundhog Day, and I'm just saying, and it's not entertaining. That's a great movie, but this is
Republicans say this is an admission that Democrats are using the American people as political leverage during this shutdown. You want to respond?
Donald Trump is the president. Republicans control the House and the Senate. They've made the decision to shut down the government.
And so point number 1, Democrat votes are required to open the government. Point number 2, they refuse to do it. They have now voted 12 times to keep the government closed. And they'll have another chance today or tomorrow, maybe multiple times this week, and we'll see what they do.
Yeah, multiple times. You ask Hakeem Jeffries, what are you guys going to do? It's in the Senate. Well, the Republicans, they run, all executive branch. No, they don't. No, they don't. They may have a slim majority in the Senate, which they do. Slim majority in the House, which they do. They do not have enough votes in the Senate to move this, and you know it. But here's the kicker. You call Donald Trump a dictator. You call him a dictator, but then you demand that he fix it. Y'all are dumb. I'm sorry. I just got to say it like it is. Y'all are wild. Okay. We don't want a dictator, no kings, but you better fix it. Huh? It's not his job to fix it. It's your job. That's why you're in Congress. And you're actually supposed to work for the American people. By the way, not that I should have to remind you of your job, but apparently somebody needs to. Because Donald Trump does not have the ability to do anything in Congress because he's not in Congress. He's the president. He's got the power of veto or pass it. That's it. If he vetoes it, you got to go back and start over. That's it, dude. He does not get to go in there and tell everybody, you better do this and you better. That's not how it works. And it was designed that way so that the people, Congress, you're supposed to represent us. So if the president isn't doing what's right by the people, you have the ability to fix it. That's your job. That's your job. And you really don't know how to do your job. Like I said, it's not that I want you guys not elected again. I really want you in prison. Like every day I see another representative on screen, I just want prison time. Because you are at this juncture. You're just going out of your way to try to destroy America. Like you're going out of your way, and we see it. And we're over it. I don't know if anybody else is over it. I'm over it. So with that, I went to ChatGPT yesterday because I found out that apparently the states have decided to do a class action lawsuit against the United States government for not funding SNAP. So let's get into it. So there's a large coalition of states. They're suing the United States Department of Agriculture under the Supplemental Nutrition Program, which is SNAP, funding issue amid the federal government shutdown. So more than 20 states plus the District of Columbia have filed a lawsuit arguing that the USDA has access to billions of dollars in contingency funds that would keep SNAP benefits flowing, even though an appropriation lapse is occurring. The states claim the USDA's decision to stop or suspend SNAP benefits during November 1st in 2025 is unlawful because Congress clearly intended that assistance continue under the contingency funds. The USDA argues it cannot legally use the contingency fund to pay regular benefits in fiscal year 2026 since no appropriation exists for regular benefits yet. So to just kind of dial that back, had they got a clean CR till November 21st, which all it was just gap funding till the 21st, the CR, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now because SNAP benefits would have been done, right? SNAP benefits would have pretty much been done going into fiscal year 2026 through the continuing resolution. It wouldn't even been a conversation. Been done. But they need leverage. You heard the Democrats say, we need leverage. We need a trigger. Okay, so the Democrats have decided they're going to use the ACA that expires at the end of 2025, right, as leverage. They're not going to, pass the continuing resolution, which actually would fund SNAP going into fiscal year 2026. They don't want to do that. They want what they want, and they are literally willing to burn the country down to do it. That's where we're at. They don't want to negotiate. To me, this is not a negotiation at all. So when you negotiate, you go back and forth and you actually get to a point where you have clarity to move forward. That's how negotiations work, right? This is just hostile. Period. It's hostile. It's not a takeover, but it is the dismantling of our country because people are so divided on this. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen some of the videos. People are threatening to steal if they have to. We need to make sure that the food banks are, funded with donations so that as people are in need, they can get serviced. But my husband and I were talking the other day, and he was like, where's like Jeff Bezos and all these other billionaires? Why can't they donate like $100,000 or, and I said, oh yeah, that would be pretty cool. Maybe Amazon could, give people vouchers, for Whole Foods that receive EBT benefits so they could get at least food delivered since they are in partnership with Whole Foods, right? Nothing from them. That's interesting. And Patty Cake says, are those states participating in the lawsuit democratically ran? I'm not sure if the ones participating are necessarily Democrat or Republican. I didn't pare down that far. I should have, but I didn't. I mean, I can assume that some of them are, right? Maybe not all of them, but we'll say some of them so we don't broad brush it. So SNAP serves roughly 42 million Americans, right? It benefits many low-income households, including children, seniors, people with disabilities, could face food insecurity. The state's suit emphasizes harms to public health, children's nutrition, and state and local economies. It's also a high-stakes legal and policy question about how federal funding works during a shutdown, appropriated funds versus contingency reserved funds. So the appropriated funds are obviously the funds going into the new fiscal year, right? It's a line item and they have it. Contingency and reserve funds are backup funds, right? That are available if needed and necessary. So we're going to get into it. It's long. I was looking at it because, sometimes I'll be like, oh, what about this? What? I'm like, and before I know it, I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, I want to use this for the show, but grief, that's a lot. So I'm gonna have to like speed through some things. But if anybody wants a copy of this, like the link, I'll send it to you. You can email me at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. Okay. So the lawsuit was filed in federal court in Massachusetts. So here's some of the states: California, Massachusetts, New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Washington, and many others are among the plaintiffs. Now we know the ones listed there definitely they're run by Democratic representatives. Yeah, at least these. So the USDA has issued warnings that benefits may lapse if the shutdown continues and has said that the well has run dry for certain funds, right? Now, this is not only a suit about states suing Donald Trump personally, but rather states suing the federal administration via USDA, right? And challenging the policy decision under his administration. So while Trump's name is involved as the administration head, the legal parties are the USDA and the federal government, right? Because again, yes, he's over them. It's like, yeah, I'm your boss, but the USDA actually has a bit of autonomy where if they need to work with Congress to do this, that's how it's done. It's still out of the purview of the president. He can't approve it or disapprove it. He can't do anything. He really is powerless in this situation. And they know it. And that's why they're doing it. And that's why they're going about it the way they are. They're like, see, it's his fault. It's like, no, it's your fault. First of all, this, like I said, this falls at Congress's feet completely. Now I ask, being that SNAP still has to be approved by Congress, even if the USDA wanted to use the contingency fund, is there legal precedent for states to sue the federal government for a social program? Because I wanted to know. So it says, excellent question. You're absolutely right. SNAP is a federally appropriated program, meaning even though the USDA administers it, the power of the purse still belongs to Congress under Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 of the U.S. Constitution. So the current lawsuit raises a constitutional tension. And basically, can the executive branch, USDA, continue to fund a social program without a new congressional appropriation, even if contingency funds exist? And can states force them to do so? Okay, so because that's where we're at right now. That's what they're trying to do. So in general, there's no spending without congressional appropriation. I would love to read all this, but like I said, it's long. The legal precedent for states suing the federal government over social programs, and this has happened, right? Massachusetts versus Mellon in 1923. The Supreme Court originally held that a state cannot sue the federal government merely on behalf of its citizens as taxpayers. So this is why it matters. States can't just sue because they disagree with spending policy. They must show a direct sovereign injury. Okay. Massachusetts versus the EPA in 2007. The court expanded state standing, allowing Massachusetts to sue the EPA for not regulating greenhouse gases. Established that states have special solitude in standing, meaning they can sue if federal inaction harms their residents' welfare or economy. And when we're talking about welfare, we're talking about their well-being, their actual personhood. This has nothing to do with actual welfare benefits. Okay. Now, California versus Trump, multiple cases 2017 through 2020, which there were. California and other states sued over cuts to DACA, Title 10, and ACA subsidies because there were at the time, and what they were trying to do as they're put now in the HR 1, the big bill, okay, the subsidies that they were trying to cut back on were subsidies for people that were here illegally, right? And California was like, you can't do that. And they were like, we don't have to send you federal dollars for people that are here illegally. We'll send you federal dollars for your citizens, that are here legally, but we're not going to give them to you for people here illegally. That's why we have this whole status thing that we have now. Now, courts often found states had standing because the cuts harmed state budgets or public health systems. And see, that's to me where the courts got it wrong, because now you have interfered with legislation. And now you are legislating from the bench. This is congressional, has nothing to do with you. It should have always been kicked back to Congress. But here we are. So City and County of San Francisco versus Trump in 2020 challenged the Trump administration's attempt to withhold federal funds from sanctuary cities. That's when this fight first jumped off, because nobody's ever known about sanctuary cities up until now. What? Who? Sanctuary, huh? You know what I mean? Nobody's ever talked like that until Trump got in office. And let's see. Black Flag says, rise and conquer. Legends today, yours to own. And great day, Black America. He says, grand rising. And thank you so much for joining us this morning, King Tremaine, and reposting the stream, Black Flag. Thank you so much. And thank you for your comments, Black Flag. So the challenge the Trump administration's attempt to withhold federal funds for sanctuary cities reinforced limits on the executive branch's discretion to withhold or redirect congressionally appropriated funds. And see, they were able to do it in that bill. And they're angry because now they can't fund the people that they've brought here illegally. That money's going to be gone. And they're mad about it. And they're trying to figure out how to get it. Now they're holding all of us hostage. And that's my opinion. We're being held hostage. This is not a negotiation. Not at all. So the state of New York versus HHS in 2019. States challenged Trump-era rule rolling back ACA's non-discrimination protections. So the court ruled agencies can't reinterpret social program laws without following proper statutory authority. Okay. They basically wanted to come in and say, well, we're just going to do this. And we're just going to, you know what I'm saying? We're just going to disregard whatever you said. We're going to do this. And it's like, you can't do that, states. Just saying. But these are the court cases that were presented at that time. So what makes the SNAP lawsuit unique is states' arguments the USDA already has funds in the SNAP contingency reserve that were appropriated by Congress for emergency. Therefore, refusing to use them to constitute benefits is not a constitutional violation. It's an agency discretion issue. Now, I want you guys to keep that in mind, what I just said, because I'm going to skip a little bit forward, because like I said, I kept asking questions and this got long. The USDA's counter argument, those funds are only for administrative emergencies, natural disaster, or partial shutdown operations, not for full benefits in a fiscal year without a budget. Okay, so those are the two things that are happening. USDA is like, we can't just fund this for a year. We don't have that money. That's not what the stopgap is for. And the states are like, you better give us what we want. And it's funny to me because these same states would be like, we're starving. You can't tell us what to do. Get out of our state. At the same time, they're like, give me my money. It's weird. I'm just saying. So, legal hinge, right? Whether courts interpret the contingency fund statute 7 USC section 2027 as giving USDA lawful authority to spend without a new appropriation, right? So there's no direct precedent on the exact question, but parallel cases do exist. Okay, so in Train versus City of New York in 1975, the Supreme Court ruled that the president cannot refuse to spend funds that Congress appropriated for a specific purpose, right? So if something is appropriated there, the president can't say, no, we're not spending it on that. He doesn't have that kind of power. They can ask. You know what I mean? And I know everybody's like, oh my gosh, they just do whatever Donald Trump says. A lot of times he doesn't get everything he wants. He doesn't. We hear about the things that he does get, but he can't. There are certain things he cannot do, right? However, in Lincoln versus Vigil in 1993, the court said agencies have broad discretion on how to allocate lump sum appropriations within a program. So once they get the money, even if they said, okay, this money is to make houses for the homeless, we need this money. They get the money and they decide, well, we're not going to make as many houses for the homeless. We might make some of them, but we're going to use the money over here. There's nothing that Congress can do after the money has been given over. They can't claw it back. They can only just let the agency do with it what they, said they were going to do. So if the contingency fund is viewed as a lump sum appropriation, USDA might have discretion to choose how or when to spend it. But if courts see it as specifically for emergencies, then the states could win, right? So I said, okay. So then I asked another question. It's asked me, so would you like me to break down the exact language of the contingency fund? I was like, yes. Also, can you please explain the state of New York versus HHS in 2019 and non-discrimination protections? Because I was like, what does that even mean? So the core of the SNAP issue, right, is contingency reserve. So we're there. And basically what this means is Congress did authorize a standing contingency reserve, which can be tapped if the U.S. Secretary deems extra money is needed to keep SNAP running, right? That determination must align with the purpose of this chapter, meaning feeding eligible low-income households. There is no line in the statute that limits use only to natural disasters. That limitation comes from administrative practice and USDA's internal policies, not the statute's text, right? So going down, I wanted to find out what this case was with HHS. So in May 2019, the Trump administration of the Health and Human Services Department issued a rule called the Conscious Rule, right? And it allowed healthcare workers, hospitals, insurers to refuse services, including abortion, contraceptive, gender affirming care, or even certain emergency treatments if providing them conflicted with their religious or moral beliefs. So someone couldn't just go into any hospital and say, hey, I want a transgender surgery and you have to do it. It's like, no, we're not doing that over here. Okay, so that's what that was about and that's what it was for. Now, New York and 18 other states, DC, and major cities sued HHS. They argued the rule was unlawful because it expanded conscious protections far beyond what Congress intended in statutes like the Church Amendments, Coates, Snow, and Weldon Amendment, jeopardizing funding to states and health systems by allowing HHS to withhold billions in grants if providers didn't comply. Okay, violated non-discrimination protections under the Affordable Care Act's Section 1557, which prohibits discrimination in federally funded health programs based on race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. Yeah. So the court's ruling, the administrative procedure, HHS exceeded its statutory authority. Congress never authorized HHS to create such broad new rights or punish states for noncompliance. Yeah. Substantive due process. The rule engaged patients by allowing refusal of critical care without safeguards. Spending clause violation. HHS threatened to cut off billions in funding without clear congressional authorization, violating constitutional limits on executive spending conditions. Arbitrary and capricious. I've been having a hard time with that one. HHS failed to consider the impact on vulnerable populations, including the LGBTQ patients and women seeking reproductive care. So basically, people wanting to become eunuchs and kill their babies. And that's what it is. I don't care how pretty everybody wants to say it. It is what it is. It sounds really awful and ugly, right? Because it is. If you don't like it, you can leave my stream. Okay. But you're wanting to become a eunuch and destroy your reproductive organs, and then you want the right to kill babies. That's it. That's really the crust of the matter, what they wanted. And they wanted other people to participate in it, and they didn't want them to have a way out of it. It's like, no, somebody comes to you and they want to have an abortion, you have to do it. It's like, no. That's what that conscious rule was about. So this case shows how states can successfully sue the federal agency when the agency reinterprets a social law in a way that undermines access to federally funded benefits, right? And the reinterpretation has direct harm on residents and state budgets. So what you saw under the Biden administration was the exact opposite. It was exact flip, right? It's like, you have to do this. You can't get out of it. And Trump was the exact opposite. So we get through with all that. And I said, so my question is, the contingency for the shutdown, is it just until the shutdown is over, or is it for a full fiscal year that has not yet been approved by Congress? Okay, so it says you've hit the core of the SNAP lawsuit and the constitutional tension between USDA and the states. Can SNAP contingency reserve be used only as a short-term bridge during a shutdown, or could it fund an entire fiscal year before Congress passes a new budget? Right? That's really what they're trying to get at, because somebody I saw the other day, they had a video and I was like, oh wow. And it was like a single bill, right? A single pay bill for SNAP. And it's like, okay, they could do that, but it would be outside of the CR, which means it would be outside of the fiscal year budget. And they would have to put a cap around it, but they could do it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it could be done. And they actually did put forth legislation to do it, and it didn't pass. Yeah, did pass. So, but they tried. Yeah, can't knock them for trying, but it did not pass. So there are authorized to be appropriated such sums as may be necessary for a contingency reserve to be used to make payments to states to carry out the chapter whenever the secretary determines that additional funds are necessary to carry out the purposes of this chapter. Right? Plain meaning, Congress allows a standing pool of money, a contingency reserve, for emergencies when extra funds are temporarily needed. The USDA secretary has discretion to release it when additional funds are necessary, right? There's no language authorizing USDA to replace a full year's appropriation or to operate the entire SNAP program indefinitely without congressional approval. It's a supplemental fund, not a substitute for the regular annual budget. But see, this is kind of where it gets sticky. So we're going to go into like the short gaps and, where they had to fund, right? SNAP for a short time. So in 2011 was 1 month. 2013, it was 3 weeks. 2018 and 2019, it was a month. 2025 right now, it's at 2 to 4 weeks. Like, this is where we're at now. Now, historically and administratively, the contingency reserve is designed to keep benefits flowing until Congress reopens or passes a continuing resolution, not for the fiscal year. Okay, why USDA says using it for a full year would be illegal. Okay, an officer or employee of the United States government may not make or authorize an expenditure or obligation exceeding an amount available in an appropriation or fund. Now, once the fiscal year began October 1st, with no enacted appropriation, there is no budget authority for new obligations. So they didn't put in any place. There's pretty much, basically, USDA is like, our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do. Congress has not said this is what's going to be out for the year. Didn't do that, but it was in the CR. Now, the contingency fund was appropriated in a prior fiscal year with finite dollars, typically a few million. Using it for 12 months of nationwide benefits less than $100 billion annually, which is what we're at right now, would vastly exceed that prior appropriations intent and amount. right? USDA argues this would therefore violate the Anti-Deficiency Act, potentially even triggering criminal penalties for agency officials. In short, they cannot spend more money than what they have on hand. That's just the simplest way I can put it. They do not have enough to float this out of the contingency fund that they have on hand. They don't have the money. We'll get into that. Okay. We're going to keep going on, y'all. We're going to keep pressing forward. I'm telling you, it was long. What I did, it says, would you like me to show you the actual appropriation history of SNAP? And I was like, yeah, I'd like to see it. So they put it out there. But what's important to know is this. According to the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities, CBPP, Congress in the 2024 and 2025 appropriations laws each made available multi-year contingency funds, about $3 billion per year for SNAP. Now, SNAP spends $100 billion per year. Let me just let that sit with you. They spend $100 billion per year on everybody that's on the program, right? They put in the contingency fund $3 billion. So they set aside $3 billion for 2024 and 2025. That's $6 billion. That's it. That's all they got. If you only have $6 billion, and again, they're not saying to fund it for the year. They're not saying that. They're just saying, okay, the gap, can you just cover the gap? They only have $6 billion. That's it. It would only literally fund for maybe a few weeks. That's it. And it's gone. They cannot say, okay, we'll just cover $8 billion because they don't have $8 billion. They've got 6. And that's it. $6 billion. That's all that they have. Okay. So this suggests about usage and duration. The contingency fund appears to be multi-year reserves, not single fiscal year monies. The $3 billion per year figure can carry over and be used in future years. So it can roll over. So let's say if they had done this over 4 years, right? And they've got $12 billion. Now they would have $12 billion to cover it. Could they cover SNAP for a month with $12 billion? Absolutely. But they don't have that. They've got 6. That's it. Now, because SNAP monthly benefits roughly cost $8 billion to $9 billion per month, right? That's where we're at. Per month, y'all. According to the recent dispute, and the contingency fund is on the order of $3 billion per year or $6 billion across several years. The contingency fund cannot cover a whole year of benefits alone. It can't even cover the monthly. Seriously. So Congress has approved roughly $3 billion per year in contingency funding for SNAP in recent years, 2024, 2025, making about $6 billion available. That's it. That's it. Now, the contingency fund is intended as a reserve for times when additional funds are necessary, especially during funding lapses or emergencies. Okay. But it's not like they've got like, okay, we've got 20 billion over here and 6 on the side. Like, no, that's all they have is 6. That's it. The fund has not historically been used or structured to fully replace the benefits for a fiscal year. And it wasn't designed for that. In a current fiscal year funding lapse scenario, USDA's position is that the contingency fund cannot legally be used to cover full benefits in the absence of a regular appropriation, while states' advocates argue the funds should at least be used to prevent immediate disruptions. So the states are like, well, can't you just use what you have? It's like they could, but it would only last you for 3 weeks. That's it. It wouldn't even last a month. And it's gone. Congress has to fund this. USDA does not have the monies like that. I know everybody does think that they are just like, we're just holding on to it. It's like, no. So I asked the question. I was like, can USDA cover to the end of December? right? Being that it costs $8 to $9 billion per month for SNAP, and the annual contingency is $3 billion per year. Also, can states cover until December 25 without federal support? So I want to know, like, can they do it? So nationwide SNAP benefits currently cost $8 to $9 billion, whereas where around outlayers are $120 billion total, right? 42 million people a year. So according to CBPP, the USDA's fiscal year 2025 appropriations language, Congress appropriated $3 billion in fiscal year 24 and in 25 in the contingency reserve. So they've got $6 billion. USDA accounting shows the reserve is multi-year, meaning leftover funds roll over but cannot exceed the appropriated balance, right? So if monthly it's 8 to 9 billion and we've only got 6 billion, you're kind of upside down. That's where they're at. So even if USDA used every dollar in the contingency fund, it could not cover November and December, right? It might barely cover early November, depending on administrative costs. By mid or late November, the fund would likely be depleted. The USDA cannot legally or fiscally cover SNAP through December with the current reserve. So they cannot spend more than they have. They just can't do it. So for the Democrats to say, well, they're disingenuous. This is on Congress. Like, I have never really seen this type of demonic behavior in my life, in our government. Like, they are showing who they are. This is demonic. I'm just calling it like it is. You are demons. And you're there just riling up people to do evil. And you're okay with it. That's the worst part. You're okay with this. This is disgusting. I mean, I know God's in control. I know that this too shall pass. But this right here, to see it in real life, it's gross. It really, really is. So legal limit, Anti-Deficiency Act, and obligation authority. Even aside from the math, once the contingency fund is exhausted, USDA has no remaining budget authority to obligate new funds. So they cannot just say, hey, we want $10 billion. Like, they can't do that. Like, Congress has to give them the money. Okay. So continuing payments into December would violate 31 USC Section 1341 Anti-Deficiency Act, which prohibits spending or obligating beyond available appropriations. Agency officials could face administrative or criminal penalties for doing so. So even if the will to pay exists, the legal authority disappears once that reserve is spent. Okay? There's not enough money to do this. Not long term. And long term is literally till the end of the year. They only got $6 billion. And I know that $6 billion is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of money, right? But when you're looking at it on paper to $100 billion, which is a full fiscal year, $6 billion isn't a lot. It takes 8 to 9 billion monthly to handle this. Monthly. Like, we got to wrap our heads around it. I'm grateful we're not into the trillions. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, so SNAP says that could states cover benefits through 2025, right, through December. And a SNAP is a federal entitlement under the Food Nutrition Act of 2008. So states administer SNAP through social service agencies, but benefit funds come 100% from the federal government. States pay about 50% of administrative costs. So the workers are paid by the state, right? But the actual benefits come from the federal government. Now, legally, states cannot issue federal benefits without federal authorization. Benefits are tied to federal EBT systems, Treasury-linked accounts. States have no authority to issue SNAP dollars under the USDA program without federal matching funds and reporting. Could states create their own temporary emergency programs? Yes, but they'd have to use state general funds or emergency reserve, like a rainy day fund, and set up a parallel food assistance program, not SNAP. It couldn't be labeled SNAP or use the same federal EBT accounts. Yeah. So what are you going to do? Like, could the state, I guess, issue people, I don't know, like an emergency tax fund where they just give people money. I hate to say it like that, but like if they use it almost like it's a tax refund, because we got something like that here in Georgia where they had a reserve and they were like, oh, okay, we have a reserve, so we're just going to pay our citizens $500, per family, per individual, whatever. And so we got a $500 tax refund in the mail. It's great. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Could the states do something like that? They probably could, but I mean, logistically, it would like, man, on the horn doing it. But they could. I'm just using that as a suggestion. They could do something like that because most people do have bank accounts. Most people do pay taxes, but it's like, what about the people that have are probably on EBT that don't have a bank account, right? How would they get the money to them? Could they use gift cards or something like that for people to make sure that they get food or something? They could do that as well. So it's not that they can't do it. It's what ideas can you come up with to make sure that people are going to be okay, right? Those are just some suggestions that I have, right? So here we get it. But I was just trying to understand more. So I said, so is this why the USDA is pushing back? And could this information be used in the lawsuit brought by the states? That's an excellent question. 0 and on the key legal budgetary tension. Okay, so why the USDA is pushing back? Like we pretty much just went over. They're pushing back because they just don't have enough money to cover this. Can states cover SNAP without federal support? Yes and no, right? They just can't use SNAP as the name. Could this be used in state lawsuits? They could, because they could use the whole New York versus HHS, right? Saying that the USDA's refusal to fund SNAP is, it'll harm us, but they don't have enough money to do it. And nobody's going to jail for this. Okay. Like nobody's doing that. So, but if the contingency fund is used for less than a month's spending, could that be grounds to dismiss the case? Right? Because they don't have enough money to cover the next 30 days. Like, how are you going to be like, USDA, it's your fault? Like, they don't have the money. Congress has got to do this. Okay. So this is a very short question. And yes, it could be a major argument for dismissal, depending on how the states frame their case. Okay. So the federal government's USDA's likely argument for dismissal, right? It's moot. It's speculative. Basically, they don't have enough money to do this, right? The funds exhaustion is inevitable. There's no legal duty to extend funding, right? They do not have the capacity to do. They're not like self-funded, like, hey, we just have money out of nowhere. This is great. No, Congress funds them. Okay. It all comes from Congress. So again, this goes all the way back to Congress's feet. I know they keep trying to pass the buck, and it's almost like how they do the shell game, where they put the ball under the shell and then they switch things around. They're like, okay, where's the ball now? Like, this is what they're doing. It's really sad. So the state's counter argument could be they avoid dismissal by focusing on procedural or administrative failings rather than appropriations themselves. Okay, that could be their counter. So during the current session of the Senate, why did the single bill for SNAP funding fail? And how much was it for? Right? Because I wanted to know, like, what's going on. So the bill was introduced as the SNAP Funded Act of 2025. Its purpose to appropriate funds for the United States USDA to provide uninterrupted benefits under SNAP. Okay, great. It included retroactive payments for missed benefit payments for September onward, right? So it probably September to December. Now, going forward, I didn't realize what time it was. I'm sorry, y'all. I've been into this. So how much funding was proposed and what's at stake? The media suggests the cost of 1 month SNAP is $8 to $9 billion. And the contingency, like we said, that's already sitting is $5 to $6 billion. Therefore, the bill didn't list a specific number The implication is that the appropriation would need to be at least as high single-digit billions to cover just November benefits nationwide. But they didn't give a number in the bill. They didn't say, okay, it's going to be $20 billion. They just did not give a number. It was very arbitrary. And that's the reason why it didn't pass. Okay. So it asked me if you would like me to pull together the senators that voted for this. So here are some of the senators that voted for this, right? And then it says we like a complete list of co-sponsors. So we got the list of co-sponsors. Raphael Warnock, he's my senator here in Georgia, and he was there. And this is map out senators have publicly indicated they'll vote to advance or block the bill, right? And here's a list of some of them that will vote to advance or block the bill. And I said, okay, in this funding bill, is there an amount that equals the spending needed to keep the funding going? In the text, it says keep SNAP funded for 25. There's no fixed dollar amount specified. It uses the phrase such sums as are necessary. That's extremely arbitrary. It could be $20 billion. It could be $50 billion. It could be, you know what I'm saying? Like they need to put a number around it. And this is why it's not getting passed. Okay. To ensure uninterrupted supplemental benefits as appropriated. I know on the one hand, they're saying like if it's 8.5 billion, let's say, and they say they're going to fund it for 8 billion, then it wouldn't be enough. But if they say, okay, we're going to fund it to 10 billion, we know that's too much, right? So that's why they're probably not trying to put a number around it. My whole thing is this, even if you said, okay, we're going to do it for 20 billion, we know it's going to be at least 18 to 19 billion over November and December. The rest of it can go back to the USDA contingency fund. Like simple math. I'm just saying, like, let's figure this out. So doesn't this conflict with the USDA's authority to approve contingency funding? This seems illegal if there isn't an amount specified. Yes, you hit the tension on the heart of the SNAP funding issue, right? That's pretty much it. They can do this. They're just not doing it the right way. That's it. But it's still in Congress. It's still their fault, period. So SNAP breakdown, basically the big box stores, Walmart's at the top and everybody's like, crash Walmart. I'm like, y'all are tripping. Now welfare, it began in the 1600s, simple program. We got down to the 1930s through the Great Depression. In the 40s and the 60s, post-World War II, you know what I'm saying? Everybody else was getting it. Black people couldn't get it. The Great Society in the 1960s and 70s, then everybody could get it. And welfare reform where people had to go to work. Now we're here today and it's still falling apart. That is a big problem. Now, I wanted to quickly show you just what was going on. And this is a chart from 2022 and how and where we see households receiving benefits. Now, this yellow color, these are non-citizens head of households receiving benefits. The blue is U.S. born, and the green is all immigrant headed households. So they're receiving more benefits than regular U.S. citizens, right? Even though their populations are smaller, the amount that they're receiving is larger. Okay? That's a problem. Because if like I showed you guys the other day, if there's 50,000 Afghani people and 29,000 of them are receiving benefits, that's more than, that's about 45%, almost 50% of the people receiving benefits. Okay. So that little number, if they're receiving benefits, it looks higher because their population is smaller because it's based on their specific population. And that's what's happening here. Yes, there are fewer immigrants here overall, but they're receiving a bulk of the benefits. Okay. And this is in like cash here, food, 42%, Medicaid, 42%, housing, 4%. So they're pretty much evenly matched with the housing and the cash aid, which they shouldn't be. But with the food, they're receiving the lion's share of that. And everybody wanted us to not believe that that was happening. And I also wanted to show this chart, the illegal crossings. You see they're at a very low point here in May of 2020. This was prior to the election. And then it peaked up, right? It just shot right up. In like January 2021, there was 140. That was in February. There were like 97,000 people that came in to the border in just 2021. Now we're back down to like 8,400 people that crossed the border in March of this year. Okay. So the numbers are back down, but a lot of these people are still here. That's a problem. That's a whole problem. And Dr. C says it's a nothing burger. It is, but it isn't. It's kind of a something burger because they're using it, like they said, as leverage. That's what they're doing. They are definitely using this to get the country riled up. So we're upset about something that they can take care of. I'm just saying, it's on Congress to get this done. Now I had so much other things to cover. I'm going to try to cover it. I'm just going to cover it like really, really fast. But I know that was long, but I needed you guys to know really what's happening, because not everybody's talking about it the way I'm talking about it, and really just trying to see like what is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the problem here? What have we done? But it all still goes back to Congress. The Republicans and the Democrats have to figure this out. USDA cannot fix this. And the states suing the USDA is only exacerbating the problem. They're not fixing it. They're not helping, because at the end of the day, this still goes back to Congress, who should be working for the people, and they're not. They're truly showing that they work for party. They do not work for the American people. So on the one hand, maybe it's a good thing that they're showing themselves full out. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I was going to go over the it's called the Auto Pen and Arctic Frost, if you haven't heard about it. But pretty much, let's get into the Auto Pen quickly.
The DOJ needs to take this and run. John, we've handed this to Pam Bondi on a silver platter.
Yep,
We've done all the heavy lifting. We've done the depositions. We've combed through the emails. I mean, this is the hard, tedious work of an investigation. Now it's up to her to bring these people in. If there's anything in the report that's inaccurate, if there's anything in the deposition that we reported that are mischaracterized, now here's your opportunity to try to defend the other position. If not, then the report is 100% accurate, and the pardons need to be declared null and void immediately. I would go further, but now this is me, and I would hold some of these people accountable for misrepresenting the president's health and for abusing their power as a bureaucrat in the White House that was essentially forging the president's name.
Because under the U.S. law, it's illegal. You can delegate that I agree with this law. I'm on a helicopter, use an auto pen. And they have to create a note of it, when it was said, when it was done, and that's attached to it. You can't just say, oh, I'm at the beach. I don't even know who I am. You guys do whatever you want. They admit it was a committee. We didn't elect that committee. We didn't elect him either, but this is cut and dry.
So there was that. Now let's get into a little bit of this Arctic Frost.
The FBI without fixing the people in the FBI, and we haven't done that. I sent your guys a meme, and the meme is essentially the same sort of like the pitch, the Don Draper standing up by a document, and he just says, hey, reform, but with the same guys. The same people who worked at the FBI before Trump was in are the same people who worked there before. They're still there. This reform attitude about using the same people is what Kash Patel is going to fail at. You can't fix it because the people who work for the FBI don't have the moral
I totally
character.
agree. So you sent me the guy that was the puppet, but you have to help us because I want to put it on screen. The guy that was in charge of him, Dave Geist. How do you spell that?
It's Geist. You can't find a picture of him online. He's actually really pretty smart. A lot of these guys have gone and they've reduced their footprint. So their LinkedIns are gone. Even though they used to always be out there looking for the next job when they retire, they've realized that we're outing them.
Well,
we're exposing them.
It's Dave what?
It's Golf Echo, India, Sierra, Tango, Geist. I've gone looking for him. I can't find pictures of him.
And
but
so
I know what
that's
he
the
did,
guy.
and I know where he was
So
at.
We're spotlighting who was actually behind Arctic Frost. So I get you're saying it's political. They brought it out. But how amazing is it? Because we put it through ChatGPT. I talked to you, others. This is literally a dragnet. Was there gambling? Was there money laundering? Was there campaign finance?
Right.
Jack Smith wasn't looking for J6 attacking the Capitol. He was saying to the FBI across the country, find me anything. And then they all signed on to it. So doesn't that open this up to grand juries around the country to investigate this?
I think.
Now I'm going to stop right there. Now we all know when he started talking about Dragnet, I was like, yeah, that's just COINTELPRO. They're just calling it something else. Arctic Frost is just what they used to go after different people like Trump and people associated with Trump in the prior White House, Jack Smith. Okay. And I asked ChatGPT. So I was like, what are we talking about? And it was like, yeah, I said, can you explain Arctic Frost weaponization investigation against Trump and how it compares to COINTELPRO? Well, here's the breakdown. Arctic Frost alleged weaponization investigation of COINTELPRO of 1956 and 71, along with how they compare, right? So Arctic Frost, according to Q&A by U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley, created the framework that Jack Smith, a special counsel appointed by the U.S. Department of Justice under Joe Biden administration, used to form his election case against Donald Trump. So Senator Grassley claims that senior FBI official Timothy Talbot, assistant special agent in charge, allowed his partisan views to corrupt his decision-making process and tarnish the rule of law. So in essence, and this is just my opinion, it was just like COINTELPRO, but it was just for Caucasian people, right? They were pretty much doing the same thing. They just did it with the Trump administration. Like I said before, when I've covered COINTELPRO, I was like, you know, it's a culture in the FBI that they do this. It is a culture. They can no longer tell me that the FBI is just here to actually preserve the United States and you know, champion us. No. And the gentleman that was on there on the Alex Jones show, you know, he was saying, he's like, yeah, they need to gut the FBI and get a lot of people out of there. And they didn't do that. They did not remove people. See, me, I would have just been like, yeah, let's all go to lunch. Lock the office down. Send y'all to Guantanamo Bay for about 2 weeks. I need some answers. Like, that's me, right? And everybody been like, oh man, you were dangerous. You were wrong. No, but I would have done it that way. Because you kind of have to do something that drastic to figure out who should be allowed back in the office. Because these people are dangerous to the American people. Maybe not to foreign, you know, actors, but to Americans, they're extremely dangerous, right? The FBI, we should never be talking about family criminal organizations. Why are we doing that? And why are they walking free on the planet? And why do they have that designation? Like, what are we doing? Why are you even here, FBI, if you can't put these people in jail? If it's a family criminal organization, it should no longer exist. We should have just shut this down in the 1940s, but you didn't. And they're sitting around walking free. Now we got all this other stuff going on in the NBA. It's crazy. But that's where we're at. That is where we are at. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into our final segment and then our prayer going into the weekend, you know, praying cover and Thanksgiving. So thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Taking your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I'd like to thank Sincerely Lawless for joining us this morning and reposting the stream, Uncle Coolwater for joining us this morning and reposting the stream, and Mark from the Soil. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. So, I got really in depth with the whole snap thing going on. I think I went a little bit too far. But again, if you want a copy of that ChatGPT background that I went through, just send me an email at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. That's unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. And so now I want to get into our last segment. Now, this is something, the reason why I'm bringing it up is it's something we need to really be aware of and pray about and stay prayerful of, and just understanding and knowing that with everything going on, there's always a reason why they're doing things the way they're doing them, right? And we have to be conscious and aware of that so that we know how to react, right? Without being reactionary. Does that make sense? That we're more on the offense as opposed to the defense.
The images of man and what man sees, and you see here on this gradient chart here, it talks about what the images and icons will be exactly. The divine self is the highest super consciousness that we all participate in. That's the collective unconscious or consciousness, and that will be that's what's talked about in the Vedas and the perennial philosophy. Man himself, in terms of the astral realm and the super consciousness, that's Rosicrucianism, Theosophy. And then underneath that, you have these layers and these levels that get all the way down to the unconscious, dreaming man, and so forth. And that's where you can contact the entities and the demons, is this unconscious realm in their scheme. So there's a hierarchy to this, and man can learn to channel these energies, it says on the next page, 127, in order to control the human computers. And they're not saying that individuals can do this, they're saying that they're going to do this. They're going to control men. Next page is the one that talks about channeling the entities.
So this is really, again, the priest class trying to prime the public to be their slaves.
And page 133, it talks about Carl Jung's collective unconscious is very appropriate to understanding and controlling the human biocomputer. It goes on to talk about, if you want to look at page 167, there's a list of the strategies and the plan for new man, right? So the new man will be humanistic capitalism. So this is really just a kind of socialism. It says that you won't be doing economic activities that promote human growth and success, because it will be a post-materialist form of capitalism. So that's basically Fabian socialism.
And that goes back to the Carnegie thing after World War I. They wanted a post-human world. They said in competition.
No more competition is exactly what that's about. Perennial philosophy is the next section on religious attitudes of the future, where they're going to take the religion. They're going to go into traditional lore primitive peoples, not because they're interested in finding the truth in those religions. All religions do have truth, but they're picking out the things that will make you a collectivist. That's essentially the basics of this. The attitude of other people will be to get rid of territories. So notice there under part 4 is the ethic is no nation states, no territories, no borders. Everybody is part of the same spaceship Earth, the same human collective. And then the last section is system theory, which is, again, after no borders, is obviously going to be collectivism. So over and over and over, most of this book just kind of repeats these same points. And it even talks about like the symbolism.
And we put up the leftists taking their Pfizer shots or Antifa or just the average leftist. They look like their soul's been sucked out. We know this is evil.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's mad scientists, and they list all the mad scientists, and the mad scientists are the one that create the leftists with the soul sucked out.
And the top globalists, the big banks, the big money, most of their families are totally insane now. Most of their kids commit suicide or transgender, but they've just handed it all over to the mad scientists.
Yeah, and they use that by promoting diversities and minorities. This is page 116. That's a weapon, right? So they don't care about diversity and minority. That's all just actually a weapon to retool and reshape thing. And they cite, well, the raising of the so-called minorities. They cite people from the Committee of 300, like Sir Jeffrey Vickers, social ethics and whatnot. This is all to the oppression narrative is a weapon. So they take the people that are supposedly oppressed and they say that if we raise those people above, it's going to create equality. But actually what it is putting those people in power to then punish, the Western white European peoples. And they do that on purpose. And the book talks about that because you're bad. Why did you gave clothing to a tribe and you made them want stuff? So we have to pay dearly for our reparations.
And really, they're just getting rid of one elite, replacing it with 1,000 times more evil.
The government fears Alex Jones, who has the largest audience in the country, bigger than.
Yeah. Now I know why y'all sitting there like, what? Yeah. Yeah. One evil for another. Now I know with Europeans, they are just like, we gave you clothes and we did this and we did that. But here's the thing. If people were doing well without you, it was okay for you to come by and be like, hey, do you want these clothes? We're like, yeah, I can do without them. I like what I have. But let's see how we can work together. It wasn't that. It was the dominance and taking over one society. But that's what they're writing about. It's like, okay, you come over here and you're dominant. So we'll just make this other part dominant and we'll just keep doing this and allow you to destroy each other. But see how I kept doing those hands going up. If anybody here has read their Bible and you think about the Tower of Babel and how the people were like, yeah, we're just going to build a tower up to heaven until we get to God. And God was like, okay, I got to shut this down because y'all could probably do this. And he shut down the tower and he confused all the languages. So people were speaking different languages because yes, we are that powerful as human beings. But the question is, are we going to use it for good or evil? Now, I wanted to bring up Project Stargate, not to freak anybody out, but just to make you aware, like these things are out here. So let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. But a visual map, people talk about remote viewing history, showing people methods, programs, schools, and key milestones, right? Remote viewing, the early years of remote viewing started out as a limited access intel program and was conducted in relative secrecy at CRI and later on at Fort Meade. So these experiments have been going on since the early 70s, well over 50 years, because I was born in 71. So yeah, they've been messing with people's minds for a long time. And I will leave the links to this, but I didn't want to have to play the whole video because they do get more into the social controls and MK Ultra, the remote viewing, and all of these things going on. And like I said, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because with everything going on with the government shutdown and, the emotional heightening, they are socially engineering us to pit each other. They want us going after each other, even though they've caused these things. And we have to be emotionally and mentally ready, right, to deal with this without losing it, without getting, I should say, emotionally entangled. We need to keep our heads and our wits about us so we can stand back and go, okay, I see what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and here's my way out. We have to keep that mental mindset so that we're not sucked into this, right? Where we lose it, okay? And then we're just a part of the system that they're trying to recreate. We have to keep our wits about us. And I also wanted to bring up MK Ultra. You might, if any of you have watched the show Stranger Things, This Is 9. And it was a young girl who was put through the MK Ultra program. And so when you watch that show, if you're not familiar with the MK Ultra program, it's some of the things happening might be missed on you. Might think, oh yeah, this is just all. No, they're just telling you what they were doing. They were just using the show to tell you what they've been doing and how they've been communicating with evil demonic spirits. Period. And using people to cross over into that, right? In the WOE world, they focus on how a watch foiled CIA's secretive mind control experiments. So this is by an anonymous person. It says in the 1950s, under the direction of Director of Central Intelligence, Alan W. Dulles, chemist Sidney Gottlieb ordered the purchase of a large quantity of lysergic acid, the thiamine, by the CIA, whom he worked for as the head of MK Ultra, a covert program experimenting with the effects of psychoactive substances on interrogation subjects. This compound, known to most as LSD, was reportedly used on subjects, sometimes unwittingly, throughout the nation via numerous front organizations posing as research foundations and clinics, including a program at Stanford University. So they were using people unwillingly and unwittingly. Unwittingly means that you had no idea that these things would even be happening to you. You were probably just in a bad place at a bad time. And to me, this goes back to the Operation Paperclip, right? Where they brought all of these weird scientists over from Germany who were, in my opinion, they were, how should I say, psychopaths and sociopaths, because those two psychotypes don't care if people die. They're okay watching people die, and they're okay killing people. Psychopaths and sociopaths, they're okay with it. They do not have a conscience that tells them this is not right. Okay, so they feed right into that demonic behavior. But these are the people that were a part of the MK Ultra program. They were also a part of the Tuskegee experiments as well. And Michonne says, what did he say about reparations? Oh, they use many of us unwillingly. And Chief B. Jonesy says 100%. Oh, thank you so much for joining me here this morning. No, what they were saying about reparations in that context is they were saying, okay, we get the black people over the white people, and then you can get reparations. I think that was more as a context. But like I said, I'm gonna attach the link, right? Because the problem that a lot of people have with reparations is I really don't think they have the full understanding of it. I don't think they understand that people were forced into labor. Now, slavery biblically was more so, okay, I'm going to pay off a debt, so I will therefore be your slave and pay off a debt. And then afterwards, you're supposed to free me, and you're not supposed to mistreat me and abuse me and mistreat me. That's how slavery is supposed to work. It didn't work that way with us. People were physically taken and harmed and abused, right? We weren't given wages. But people say, well, you were given food and you were given shelter. No, you were lucky if you did get some kind of shelter, right? And whatever food that they thought was appropriate, which was the leftovers that you had to figure out how to use. Okay. It was not appropriate slavery. It did not have repair after we were freed. So we get free. Cool. Great. We're working. But then you release the Confederate Army. People are put back into Jim Crow. They do not count those harms. And so therefore people do not truly understand the ask for reparations, in my opinion. When I break it down to people, I'm like, yeah, the government failed in their fiduciary duty to protect people that were freed. Period. You freed people, you didn't protect them, and you abused them. Again, right? Saying that all men are created equal, but you were still abusing a segment of your population and you did not stand up for them and protect them. Period. So, we can always get into that long conversation about it, but it is what it is. It says, this is why the gospel must be preached. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The word of God is a prescription for the evil tactics and practices. Absolutely. Yes, definitely. So like I said, I wanted to bring that up mainly because, like I said, this whole MK Ultra thing, when I look at it, I'm like, well, what kind of mind games are they playing on people right now? Right? Just with this food situation, you got people crashing out like really, really bad, threatening to just steal and commit violence, and just the violence that's being committed in our society. You hear about people just shooting other people off every day, and there's no longer that soul, that conscious that tells you this is wrong, do not do this. But people do it, and they're completely desensitized from everything. And that is a lot of what MK Ultra is, to separate people from their humanity so that they will do whatever you tell them to do. And they are more controllable. And that's why I'm saying we need to be aware of this and conscious of this. So if you come across somebody that you're just like, okay, you were just not all there, you may be able to start putting the pieces together, right? And just understand that it goes deeper spiritually, right? Because spirits are being manipulated. Our spirits, our souls are being manipulated to do wrong, right? By demons. And you need to understand it. But they're using things like MK Ultra. They're using the remote viewing. They're using these different things, right? To mess with us spiritually. And we just need to be conscious and aware of that. And Michonne says, along with the side effects of the vaccines. Absolutely. Yeah. Because that takes it into account as well. And I also wanted to, before we get out of here, show you guys the bias chart from all sides. So when you're out there, and you'll see different news articles from different news outlets. The one thing I do appreciate about all sides is the fact that you can literally see all sides. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you can see it all on the screen. But it tells you who's all the way left, more so center left, center right, and then right. So BBC News is center, a Christian Science Monitor center, Forbes is center, The Hill is center. And this is just really based on their aggregation of votes on all sides. Some of these, they can tend to, sway left or right depending on the article. But for the most part, they do stay in the middle, especially News Nation. That's Chris Cuomo and his new news outlet. And then there's also SAN. That's a good one for center news. So again, like I said, I just wanted to show you guys that, just to be like, hey, yeah, when you are dealing with the news, just kind of know where these people fall. And that's the projection or the window that they're going to give you in that. Let's see. Let me go back. Okay, please don't be frozen. Okay, you're not frozen. Good. I was like, please don't be frozen. Oh my goodness. Like, I don't want that. All right, we have a few more minutes. We can get into some other things. I did see this article, and it says that the ACA premiums are projected to rise 26%. Yeah. Yep. They're going to be rising, you guys. Oh my goodness. So the Center for Medicine and Medicare Medicaid Services released rate information for 2026 Affordable Care Act plans on the federal healthcare.gov marketplace on Wednesday, just days before the start of open enrollment November 1st. So the rates are locked in. So during this time, the reason why they wanted to do the CR is because the CR was supposed to extend the government, right? So we weren't here where we are right now in the government shutdown, and it would have given them time to negotiate these rates prior to this past Wednesday, where now the rates are locked in. There's nothing you can do. Nothing they can do. And the ACA actually expires at the end of 2025. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens. So an analyst of the Kaiser Family Foundation estimates that premiums for ACA benchmark silver plans will rise about 26% in 2026, and with 30% average increase on healthcare.gov and 70% in state-run exchanges. CMS said most enrollees will still qualify for financial assistance under the original ACA tax credits, with over 90% receiving some help. It also said about 60% of consumers will find plans costing $50 or less per month after subsidies, down from 83% in 2025. So the Paragon Health Institute said the end of enhanced subsidies explains only 4% of the projected 20% premium hike, pointing instead to broader structural issues and rising healthcare costs. It's interesting. It's like, why is healthcare costs rising? Oh, that's right, because we have more people on the healthcare grid. Just saying. So the enhanced ACA tax credits were first introduced under President Joe Biden, the American Rescue Plan, as a $1.9 trillion pandemic relief package passed in 2021 and later extended through the Inflation Reduction Act. These credits are set to expire at the end of 2025 unless Congress takes action. The Congressional Budget Office has projected that roughly 3.5 million fewer Americans could have health coverage by 2027 if the enhanced subsidies are not renewed. It also estimates that extending the subsidies would cost the federal government about $23 billion in 2026 and about $350 billion over the next decade. Yeah. So remember that video that I first played where it was like, maybe they just did this so it would all fall apart. So it would all fail. So it'd be like, okay, we'll have universal health care now because it's destroyed. What are we going to do? Yeah. I really think that's part of their plan, unfortunately. So the New York Times, that leans left bias, highlighted the potential impact on individual Americans through an interactive map comparing different income levels and ages. It also highlighted the subsidies as central to the ongoing government shutdown. Breitbart, which is right, cited the Paragon Health Institute and emphasized the minimal impact of the Obamacare credit expiration on the premium increase and highlighted the role of other contributing factors. It also pointed out that the enhanced credit subsidies wealthy Americans and benefit big insurance companies. Yeah. The Hill, which is center, focused on the potential for premium increases and potential impact of the expiration of enhanced tax credits. So when I definitely I lived through having health care before the Affordable Care Act and then having health care after the Affordable Care Act. And in my opinion, I know what they were trying to do, but it's destroyed healthcare. It really, really has. I would like to go back to a pre healthcare where we were before the Affordable Care Act, because what has ended up happening is it created a dependency on the government to bring about healthcare, as opposed to just having the capital marketplace deal with healthcare. Rates were actually a lot more feasible, because see, now insurance companies, they'll charge more because they're like, oh, well, this person will get subsidized, so we can just charge what we want. Pretty much they were given carte blanche range to do just that. And so now here we are. We have a shutdown. We've got people that are, threatening to steal so they can eat. We've got, rising healthcare. There's a lot going on. But still at the end, God's in control. And that's what I'm grateful for. And that's why I definitely have Prayer with Fridays. So we can pray, cover, and Thanksgiving going into the weekend. So let's pray now. So God, thank you so much for this day, for this week, for this time, for this hour. Father, I'm really praying that everybody out there right now can really look towards you for their hope and their future, and not government. This is the moment right here that shows us that government is not God, and that you are sovereign, and that it's always been about you and helping us turn towards you. But I'm truly, truly praying that more hearts turn towards you, and that you give the people rest and peace and hope during this time. We are grateful to be a country that can give people hope, right? As dysfunctional as this country is, it does have a freedom that we can use and capitalize on. And so that's what I'm praying for the hearts right now, that people really continue to have that focus and continue to focus their hearts and minds on doing good for one another and not harming each other. I pray that you fill up the storehouses of the food banks around the country for people that are in need. And I'm definitely praying that, you help those who are upset, who are angry with the federal government, with people that are here illegally, right? We still have that going on. But I pray that you help us deal with this in a peaceful way, where people really sit back and they have more respect for this country. And if they need to leave this country so that they can come back the right way, I pray that they do that. And I pray that you put that on their hearts. I definitely pray for Congress, that you help them work through this government shutdown so that we can reopen. I know that you are greater, God, than anything. And I know that you can fix this. But I also know that sometimes you have to let things happen so that we realize as people that we need to be good to one another, that we need to step up, and we need to do what's right. So, Father, I'm just grateful for everything that you've given us, everything that you're going to do for us. And again, I just pray for your protection going into this weekend, and that for our young people out there, that you keep them from doing harm to each other, from stealing, from doing any of those things, God. I just pray that you protect all of us. And it's in Jesus' name we pray and give thanks. Amen. So guys, thank you so much for joining me here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. We will be back on Monday for our Monday recap. So remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.